chapter. This chapter is, of course, we're looking at a comparison of different animals, and we'll even talk about birds and some different things before we're out of it. But the book calls digestion the process of carrying asunder. That means absolutely nothing to me. I like the explanation that the physiology book uses for digestion, and the physiology book literally calls it the disassembly line. What we're doing, we're eating something, and we disassemble it as it goes through the process to try to get out of it what we possibly can. What waste is left, we get rid of it. So we're not 100% efficient. I know you may think so, but we're not 100% efficient. So I think the last thing we had actually talked about was feeding on fluids, and which we discovered probably the biggest fluid feeder and most irritating one out there would be the mosquito. Now, there obviously are other ones. I mean, feeding on fluids, we could use the vampire bat in that category. They feed on blood. But there's other fluid feeders that's listed as you read through there. Now, as we lead into digestion here, they use the term carrying asunder. And if we take this process we have on the board, I think it kind of breaks down what we're doing, where we're doing it at. Obviously, we'll start at the mouth. Food will flow in this direction: esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine. In that order. Pyloric valve's in there between stomach and small intestine, simply because that valve, we will run across it in a frog. We have it. Its purpose is to limit the amount of stomach food or stomach fluid entering the small intestine. Too much of it comes in there, it's too acidic. It eats up the small intestine. So if we look at the pH, we only see one oddball pH here, and it's in the stomach. There's a purpose for that. As we look at enzymes, now keep in mind anything that's an enzyme will end, well, let's put it this way. If it ends with ASE, if it ends with ACE, it's an enzyme. There are some enzymes that don't end with ACE, but if it does end with ACE, it's an enzyme. Most of those are self-explanatory. They tell you what they break down. If I say it's a protease, what's it breaking down? Oh, y'all are a little slower than I was hoping. What'd you say? Proteins, yeah. Try not to make this real hard. If it's a lipase, we're breaking down lipids. If it's a carbohydrate,
No, that's carbohydrate.
that's what I'm trying to make clear here. This is easy stuff, okay? So as we see, we start in the mouth with salivary amylase. Amylase is another enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates. As we go through the esophagus, we don't digest, we don't break down anything. It's just a traveling point. We reach the stomach, we have hydrochloric acid and pepsin. Well, the hydrochloric acid is what makes that pH drop from 7 to 2. Pepsin is the enzyme that works in a low pH. It does not work unless pH is low. The range is 1.5 to 2.5. That's why we're saying 2. And this, as you see just to the right of it, this is where protein digestion begins, is the stomach. Now, if you were just asked off the top of your head, what part of the digestive system does most of your digesting? What would you say? I heard stomach mumbled. I heard mouth. Mouth does a lot of grinding and mixing. Very little digestion.
The small intestine.
It is the small intestine, according to what we have here. I think most common answer would be the stomach. We just assume that's where the food goes and something gets broken down. But really, all we do in the stomach is continue some carbohydrate breakdown and begin protein digestion. We begin it. As we get to the small intestine, this is where everything's finalized. This is where we finish up everything. We have an enzyme for nearly every type of food we eat coming from the pancreas, and what's not covered by the pancreas is actually covered by brush border enzymes in the small intestine. So we have about 12 to 15 feet of small intestine. There's enough surface area to make this happen. So most digestion and absorption occurs here in the small intestine. It finishes off what's left. Large intestine, there's really no enzymes, no digestion. There's a little water reabsorption and some vitamin D production. That's from some waste material and bacteria utilized. You can see the breakdown: carbohydrate in the mouth, none in the esophagus, proteins in the stomach, everything else in the small intestine, and then the water absorption occurring in the large intestine. Movement, we push it into the mouth, we grind it around for a while. Most of the time we push it in the mouth and swallow it whole because we're in a hurry. That's exactly what your parents told you not to do. Why? 2 reasons. So you won't choke. Your parents really did love you as much as you thought they hated you. So you won't choke, and what?
You don't get all the nutrients and stuff like that.
Makes it easier to digest.
Oh, it definitely would make it easier to digest. But see, when we eat, if we're eating so fast that we're consuming chunks instead of grinding this up, then you most likely will overeat, which is probably what's wrong, a little bit of what's wrong with society today. Did we mention the other day that your stomach produces a hormone that goes to your brain that tells you when you're full? And if you eat a lot in a hurry, by the time the hormone gets to the brain, your brain's thinking, oh, I ate way too much. You ever make the statement, my stomach's swelling? Oh, it's already swollen. And that's the case. Have you ever been interrupted in the middle of a meal? Come back 10 minutes later and you're not hungry anymore? You ever notice when you eat things slower, you don't eat as much? If you eat small amounts throughout the day, come big meal time, you'll again eat a small amount because you're not starving. That's the problem with society today is I don't think we have a set pace except fast. We can't gear down. Everything's fast. We're in a hurry. You're not hungry until you look at your clock and it's 12 o'clock. Now you're starving. So then you go order the biggest thing they have on the menu, or you order 4 $1 menu items from McDonald's. Not 1, but 4. And you thought you got a bargain. Who knows? But we don't give our body time to communicate. That's what the problem is. So you shove more down there than it should. The stomach's screaming, it's stretching. Next thing you know, you can eat more because you've stretched the stomach out. And then you can't eat more because you've stretched it out even more. Therefore, you have a much larger stomach. So they come up with the weight loss program of stapling your stomach, right? Works. That's how they tell you to handle that. Eat small amounts, drink small sips all day. Don't go sit down and get you a big plate. Heap it and try to consume it all at once. You'll lose the stomach will just swell back out again. That's the way it works. So digestion is an art. It's a synchronization of processes that must have time to function. We don't allow it to have time in a lot of cases. There are different hormones involved in this. There's 3 principal GI hormones. Gastrin stimulates hydrochloric acid. We have to have it in the stomach. CCK, and that's bile release. It doesn't tell you to bite something. Nice little typo there, but I never changed it because it's kind of funny. So bile release, well, bile comes from the liver to the small intestine to help us break down fats. And so when we eat fatty foods, we do a pretty good job of breaking them down. We really don't get much out of them, but we break them down enough to get them out of the system. And I say out of the digestive system. They're actually absorbed into small openings in the small intestine called lacteals. And the lacteals lead it to the lymph system. The lymph system dumps it right back into your subclavian veins, which goes right back to circulation and goes and clogs something up. So there's a positive aspect of fatty foods, right?
Yeah.
Say, well, there's lots of stored energy in it. Yeah, it's stored, pretty much stays that way too. I don't think we can, our body doesn't have the capabilities of scraping the inside of your vessel to get energy. But you know, fried taters and beans sure sounds good right now. Especially if you have some ham hock in there.
Salt meat.
Probably had bacon for breakfast with whatever else, gravy.
If you didn't have a gallbladder, you would be eating that stuff.
Without a gallbladder, it'd be pretty rough, wouldn't it? Are you minus a gallbladder
Yes.
and you don't get to eat the good stuff anymore? Man, I'm glad my gallbladder works.
Did you know it's genetic? There's no woman in my family that has a gallbladder.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
They were born with a gallbladder.
I had mine when I was 7.
Wow, you started young. Yeah, just go ahead and get it over with, right? Well, they say those attacks are not fun.
You think somebody's stabbing you to death.
Just say that again?
You think somebody's stabbing you.
Stabbing you to death.
Yes, it sucks.
I've never experienced that.
That or you
compared
don't get to
with.
eat anything, one or the other.
That'd be a nice weight loss
Right.
program for them. I've heard it cause them to vomit and just, you know, not, depends on what you eat though, what it makes you do, so. Anyway, there's kind of summary, and the last one here is actually secrete ton, not secretion. This is a case where I write this stuff down and I have a work study type it up, whom cannot read my writing, so it's as much my fault as hers. And, but the secretin gets us an alkaline pancreatic juice, that goes to the goes from the pancreas to the small intestine, which actually neutralizes the stomach, what's called chyme, entering into the small intestine. So, but being able to do that, we can only release a little bit of stomach chyme at a time. So yeah, threw a rhyme in there for you. If we just pull the plug on the stomach and let it flow in the small intestine with a 2 pH, it would just absolutely eat up the small intestine, the acid. And even as it is, most ulcers identified by doctors are dual dental ulcers, and that's the first portion of the small intestine. Now there are gastric ulcers out there. Most of those are caused by infections of Helicobacter pylori is the bacterial infection that causes it. H. pylori, everybody heard of it? There's some interesting research done on that, but we as humans used to fix H. pylori with surgery. Several $1,000s later, you may or may not heal the multiple wounds we've inflicted upon you. Where a vet was treating pigs with the same thing, for the exact same thing, treating them with a $5 antibiotic and Pepto-Bismol. So, I guess the value of life, isn't it? It's the value of a human, yeah, they want to live, so we can charge them a big surgery. You take a pig to a vet, and the vet says, I can fix that pig for about $3,000, and the guy pulls his gun and boom, well, you don't have to fix him now, I'll just eat the sucker, you know? So you got a difference in value of life. But we have learned to treat H. pylori with antibiotics, some specialized antacids to reduce acid, and let that healing process occur without the knife. Thank goodness. We probably could actually learn a lot from a vet. If you get your drugs from a vet, then you probably are a redneck, but and we may have some in here. I had a guy stop me the other day, former student of mine. I've known him for a long time. He pulls in, he says, you're a science teacher. He hands me this bottle and he says, will this fix a throat infection? It had a picture of a fish on it.
Fish biotics.
It was amoxicillin for fish. I said, I cannot advise you to take this.
There was people at work telling me to take it.
So I got it from the vet. I said, well, you must be a redneck. Of course, he laughed and he said, oh, a friend of mine said he took it, cleared that throat infection right up. And I said, well, you know, if your friend ends up dying, you can be right there with him, is all I can say. I don't know how purified these are. I think there's an awfully good chance it comes out of the same machine as human products. But the human stuff's supposed to go through more of a purification, qualification process before we have it. So if you throw some in there and kill a fish, it's just a fish, right? throw some in there and kill a couple of humans, it's a little different story, so. Did not advise him to take the medication, but if he did, I advised him, 2 pills 3 times a day. For the milligrammage that he had. So this is for a pretty small fish. I said, consult your physician is really what I say to clear up all that, but vets use same named products as what doctors prescribe us for. You can go get a steroid shot from a doctor and they're gonna charge you $10 or $12 to give you the shot and $20 for the shot, $40 for the shot. Okay, I try not to get them because they're so expensive. And then the vet gives one to your dog for allergies for $5. The whole shebang, $5. Well, the needle used costs 25 cents probably. So, does the vet make as much money as your medical doctor? No. Does he work harder? Probably. Yeah, so it's dirtier work anyway. It's not a very sterile environment, and they're supposed to prevent infection too, right? You know, scrape the feces out of the way, we're gonna do surgery right here. Get the water hose out. We did exploratory surgery on a show calf one time. There's a crypt organ calf. You ever heard of cryptochordism? Well, that's where one testicle doesn't drop. And so he looks bullish, and we want him to look steerish going into a show. So we have to do exploratory surgery. So we knock him out and shave an area. We slice it open, and he just dives in. He pulls it out. Nope, that's part of his intestine. Do you expect him? And it felt like it. Don't think that's it. There that baby is. Hey, he's just digging all around in there, you know. So, well, he's gonna die of internal infection. He didn't. He was fine. Did well. What was ironic is Kev was a little bit shaky. I mean, he's pretty tough for a small child to handle. He's a little on edge. He wasn't as calm as I liked him to be. So we named him Nuts. He just nuts. Well, after the surgery, we named him Nuts. So you can look at it any way you want to. We took a little drive out of him anyway. So, any questions over the sequence of events that must occur for digestion to happen properly? They list some enzymes on 715. And notice most of them have an ACE on the end of them. I'm not going to dive into a bunch of enzyme names and what they're breaking down. I just want you to understand there's a lot of enzymes involved. And if you see ACE on the end of something, you know it's an enzyme. Now, I will say something here. Peristalsis is the way food moves down the esophagus. And that's smooth muscle, wave-like contractions, very slow, as we talked about earlier. But you get past the stomach, the same smooth muscle, wave-like contractions is now called segmentation. It's the same thing. They rename it. Just to create confusion for us, right? Now, page 717, they're doing some, I guess, cross-referencing. I see the term gizzard thrown in there and probably crop. Well, they're talking about bird digestive systems or worm. Worms have gizzards. We're going to dissect the worm probably this week. And with that said, a gizzard is a grinding muscle. It grinds up the food process. A crop that is listed right above it is a storage capacity, storage area. Worms have it, birds have it. And these storage areas are pretty good size. Not much of a muscular wall to them at all, just storage. Gets to the gizzard, and it's a pretty good muscle. It's pretty tough. And it grinds up what's in there. Now, it's being a muscle, you know, you can take your hand and try to crush things, but it's hard to really grind something up. You ever try to crack a pecan? Just a pecan in your hand? You ever try that? What if you put 2 pecans in your hand? You got a much better chance because you got something to crack it against. If not, grab you a metal fence and crack your pecan against that. That's what they do, and it's not uncommon for birds to pick up rocks and eat them, or glass, or a seed that's harder than what other seeds that you're eating. They need something harder in the crop. And as it makes it to the gizzard, it's just a grinding stone that's in there. And there's a lining inside the gizzard that's tougher than Goodyear rubber. I mean, it's tough. People, you ever heard people eating gizzards? You can buy a wing ding liver gizzard dinner at Kentucky Fried Chicken, can't you?
I think gizzards are actually really good.
It's just a muscle. Now, if whoever's cleaning this gizzard don't know what they're doing and don't peel the inside Goodyear rubber piece off, and you're gonna be chewing on that baby for a long time. You peel it off, you just have muscle. And it actually peels off really easy. Unless you get an old cranky bird, and it hangs in there a little more. But the younger birds, it sloughs off pretty good. So part of the digestion there. Look over on 718. Here they talk more about the pyloric sphincter and its control mechanism of letting stomach chyme into the small intestine. They talk about that deep tubular glands in the stomach wall secrete gastric juice. In humans, approximately 2 liters each day. 3 types of cells line these glands: goblet cells, which secrete mucus, and that usually happens prior to food getting there. We want the stomach protected before food gets there. We have chief cells, which secrete pepsinogen. That's the inactive form of pepsin. We see pepsin listed up here. We secrete the pepsinogen. The pH drops to 2, pepsinogen becomes pepsin, and now we're activated to digest something, to break something up. Parietal cells secrete hydrochloric acid. That's going to drop the pH. And at that point, the pepsinogen is the precursor of pepsin, and that starts breaking down protein. Another enzyme they list here, renin, and I'm glad they put this in parentheses, not to be confused with renin, because they're 2 different things. In the hormone chapter, was it the hormone chapter? I know we've talked about renin-angiotensin. That's a kidney chapter, wasn't it? In the kidney chapter, we talked about the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. I went over that briefly with you. And this is a different renin. This is a milk curdling enzyme found in ruminants. So a small calf drinks milk. This enzyme helps to break down that milk. Humans don't have this. Some will say humans are not supposed to drink milk. Some will say that. You see a lot of milk allergies among people. But at some form, point in life, we were supposed to drink milk, or we wouldn't be mammals. So we break down milk with acids in different forms. We don't have this milk curdling enzyme in our system. Now, we used the information we knew about this milk curdling enzyme and used to extract it from the stomachs of calves to make cottage cheese out of. Now we know how to make a synthetic form of it and curdle the milk, and so we can eat rotten milk in the form of cottage cheese. Who likes cottage cheese?
Not anymore.
How you cool it down, it don't stink as bad. Who likes buttermilk? That's clabbered rotten milk, that's all it is. But, you know, the bacteria in it and stuff, you know, if your stomach's been upset, and it's no different taking acidophilus pills or eating yogurt. Yogurt's a different twist to rotten milk. They just throw some flavors in there and stick a strawberry on top. Holy smokes, we're gonna eat that. You know? And I'll eat parts of all of it. Depends on, you know, you can put cottage cheese in different salads, and it's not bad. Now, eating straight out, nah. Buttermilk, if you don't like the look of something, it's hard to swallow it, you know. But my dad loves buttermilk. Buttermilk cornbread is one of his favorite things.
Buttermilk
I told him,
pies.
just give me the cornbread, he can have the milk. Do I?
Buttermilk pies.
Buttermilk pies. Well, we eat buttermilk biscuits. So, but that baby's cooked. At least whatever's wrong with it, we cooked it out of it, right?
Same thing.
We do a lot of weird things as humans, but obviously they're not killing us, or they haven't yet. So this renin, they tell you, extracted from stomachs of calves, and we use it to make cheese, and to make cottage cheese, and to make different things. Now we can synthetically do this. One of the nastiest cheeses out there, in my opinion, is blue cheese. That's as rotten as you can get. I like a lot of different cheeses. Blue cheese, it's called blue cheese because it's so eat up with mold when they finally process it, that it should actually kill you. But it doesn't. What do you want on your salad? Just go ahead and mess it on up with some blue cheese dressing. Well, the right-hand side of the page, we talk about a guy, this is an U.S. Army surgeon named William Beaumont. And Beaumont was kind of he fell into an unusual situation where a patient of his accidentally shot himself with a musket. Well, when he did, he shot himself in the abdomen, didn't kill him. He actually healed. But it healed as a permanent opening, a fistula, from the stomach out. Beaumont could literally feed the guy something and watch it digest. And he thought this was so interesting, he offered the guy to live with him, free of charge, feed him, pay whatever bills it took, just to allow him to study the process of digestion. And so he did. The only thing Beaumont really said is that he was a really cranky patient. Because every time I'd feed him something and go to extract something to study it, he'd get mad at me for reaching into his stomach.
Wonder why.
Imagine that. So, man, look what all I'm doing for you, and I'm taking a little bit back and you get mad at me. Like, slap the hand that feeds you, right? Well, it's an interesting story, but he studied the guy for over 8 years. 8 years. Beaumont observed and recorded how the lining of the stomach changed under different psychological and physiological conditions, how food changed during digestion, effects of emotional states. The emotional states, does it affect your appetite? Oh, absolutely. And he pointed that out here. And motility with the stomach, with emotional states, and many other facts about digestive processes of his famous patient. He is a Canadian patient, Alexis St. Martin. Shot himself back in 1822. We probably knew very little about digestion at that point. All right. Over on 719, we see villi and microvilli. These both line the small intestine. Microvilli is also named the brush border. That's the other name for it. There's a lot of enzymes produced here, but this is where most absorption occurs, is in the microvilli. The villi are larger, but they're the ones that have the lacteals, the openings in them that absorbs fats and sends it to the lymph system, which sends it to your blood system, which clogs your vessels. It's a really nice flow there. Then on the right-hand side of the page, you talk about bile and bile salts. You know, bile is really a derivative of cholesterol. There's cholesterol base and there's red blood cell base in it. We recycle red blood cells and we throw cholesterol in there, and that's what makes up bile to help us dissolve or break up fat into small little particles. You ever see greasy water and then you put dishwashing soap in it and you see the grease particles go into smaller pieces and start dispersing? That's what bile does. So if you ever have any extra bile laying around, try it in your dishwasher and see what happens, or dishwashing water, see what happens. Next time you have a gallbladder removed, say, Doc, give me a little bit of bile, I want to run a test. Of course, you'd have to have a gallbladder to get that, so you're out. Pancreatic juice, trypsin, chymotrypsin, they're listing several here. Carbioxypeptidase, that does some carbohydrates and proteins. Pancreatic lipase, pancreatic amylase, nucleases, which breaks up into DNA and RNA, puts them into nucleotides. So I'm telling you, the pancreas has an enzyme for nearly every food we eat, and if it doesn't, it becomes activated when it enters the small intestine. So most, in fact, we can actually say this to be true, most pancreatic enzymes are called zymogens. Now, that's a term, we'll see it quite a bit in physiology, but the term zymogen means it's inactive until it reaches the small intestine. Think about it. If you've got an enzyme for nearly every type of food you eat, and it was activated as soon as it left the pancreas, would it not eat up the pancreatic duct getting there? It's gonna immediately start digesting something. So we don't want it to activate until it reaches the food source we want it to digest. So I think it's chymotrypsin, when it enters, it becomes activated by trypsinogen, which converts chymotrypsin to trypsin. Now it can continue breaking down proteins. Well, enterokinase is a brush border enzyme. It's produced right there in the small intestine. When they make contact, now we activate into trypsin, now we break down proteins. Chymotrypsin, inactive, until it gets there. So think about little things like that we typically don't waste a lot of time thinking about. It kind of makes sense that we don't want to digest our own parts. We want to digest the food, so we don't want to activate till we get there. On over to 722, and regulation of food intake. I think we've talked about this quite a bit already. Regulation of food intake, we're better off eating small amounts throughout the day or eating very slow. Number one, not to choke to death. Number two, allow our system to communicate. And if our system communicates, it's like, I'm full. I don't need any more. Of course, when you're looking at it, all you can eat buffet for $9.95, you darn sure want to get your money's worth, right? So we eat as much as we can, as fast as we can, and feel gorged when we leave. I absolutely hate going to those buffets. It's the worst thing you can do for health.
We don't go to buffets.
It's horrible. And it's because I'm gonna get my money's worth. I think $9.95 is a little high for what's on some of those buffets. But then if you throw, if it's a fish buffet or if it's a rib buffet, it's not overly priced, but I'm still gonna eat a lot. And it's a mind thing. I'd rather go order a small plate, have a decent price, and feel like I'm coming out of there all right, instead of lost 2 years off my life and edging a heart attack when I leave. So your hunger center is in the medulla. And they list your hunger center located in the hypothalamus and brain stem. Well, that brain stem is your medulla. Hypothalamus is going to work with that process, and together regulate the intake of food. All going to be associated with glucose in the system and what's not in the system, and of course, we're so programmed, just looking at your watch fires up a hunger center. Or driving down Main Street and smelling warehouse willies. That's the best advertisement restaurants can do, is produce good smelling food. It's like, man, that smells awful good. By the time you get a block down the road, we can just turn around and kill ourselves again. Leptin is mentioned here. Leptin is a hormone that's produced by fat cells. It's supposed to suppress appetite. Do you agree that we have the hormone and that it functions? Of course, you have to have some extra fat for this to actually function for you. Sometimes, I don't think it ever works with me. Leptin is null and void in my system. Food, eat more. That's what my system says. It doesn't scream leptin. Shut this process down. You're killing yourself. It doesn't say that. So if they claim it's there, how does it work? The kicker is you got to burn the fat cell to release it. I'm glad y'all are sitting down because that might require exercise. And that's like cursing in a classroom of college students. It's cursing among me. I'm not a big exerciser. I've got tendonitis in my right elbow for doing this. I might switch. But leptin is there. It does work. Any of y'all do exercise on a regular basis? When you get finished with serious exercise, are you hungry immediately? Oh, you immediately still in your leotards go to Pizza Hut and order a big.
Okay,
You need to exercise more if that's the case.
Or eat before and then exercise.
Then you don't feel like exercising if you eat before.
I always do.
It takes about 20 minutes just to burn glucose that's readily available before you ever get into the fat cells. So Once you get into fat cells, the more leptin, more fat cells you burn, more leptin's produced, which should reduce your appetite for a significant time frame after exercise. Do you see it when you exercise? Or are you immediately hungry and you go to Pizza Hut with her?
Well, I just always bring like a protein shake or a V8 or something, and drink it right afterwards.
Oh, V8 would be probably pretty well good for the body because of what you're resupplying that you may have lost.
I crave for
Do what?
I crave for like junk food after, like, I just straight up.
Just straight up glucose.
Yes.
Just get you a bag of sugar.
Yeah, right.
Get you a bunch of those single bags of sugar. Don't go with sweet and low though, it'll end up killing you with aspartame in it. Other hormones, they list CCK, gastrin, secretin, which I have listed up here. Vitamins and minerals over on 724. You know, who knows? In today's food sources, it's pretty well documented that dirt don't have the minerals it used to have in it. Not that we eat dirt. Although the Zoe book tells us that boys are more likely to be wormy than girls, boys are more likely to eat dirt than girls. Since dirt is lacking, then the plants would also be lacking. Now we would eat green beans or a variety of plant products that would be getting this, which would make them deficient in what we need. So there's more vitamin supplements on the market today than ever before. And if you need some of it, that's good that you take it. If you don't need it, what happens? Filter it out. And the kidney's really good at getting rid of excess of what you need. So if we take a multivitamin and you only need calcium out of it, you're kind of wasting your money. So every time you pee, you're like flushing some change right on down the toilet there, right? Glad you could be with us for a short period of time today.
Sorry.
I hope you get well oriented. She's killing me. You're gonna get control of your partner. So, you know, any way you look at this process, there's, if you need it, take it. If you don't need it, don't take it. How do you know if you need it? Well, you can spend thousands of dollars on tests. So, we tend to find across the board, pretty good vitamin and take it. Now, granted, if all you need is calcium, and say, well, I'm gonna go buy me some calcium at Walmart, and you go buy Worcester cell calcium, 500 milligrams. You know how much of that you actually get? 50 milligrams. You might as well get some rocks off the side of the road and swallow them. Worcester cell, we don't digest. We feed it to chickens so they can use it to grind up their food with. That's what we use Worcester shell for. It's not made for humans. It's like us eating rocks. So there are some digestible ones and some that just say, oh, I just took 500 milligrams of calcium. So if you can't use it, what good is it, right? So the table lists 32-1. Water-soluble vitamins, which these are pretty easily digested by us if they're water-soluble. Niacin, riboflavin, thiamine, folacin or folic acid, which has really become a big deal, especially among pregnant women, right, to deter against all kinds of birth defects and things. Vitamin B12, that's the one that's supposed to pump up your energy, build red blood cells. I mean, this is definitely the one you need. Biotin and ascorbic acid or vitamin C. Oh, Lord, you don't want scurvy like the old pirates used to have, so get you some vitamin C. And then you get into the fat-soluble vitamins, a little harder to digest, but A, D, E, and K, they're still highly necessary. We see a lot of milk fortified with D because we need D to help break down calcium so we can utilize it. Minerals, calcium, phosphorus, sulfur, potassium, chlorine, sodium, magnesium. Trace minerals, iron, fluorine, zinc, copper, silicone, vanadium, tin, nickel, selenium, manganese, iodine, molybdenum, chromium, and cobalt. Where do you get a lot of these? Where would you get calcium?
An orange.
Not as much in an orange, but there's a lot of orange juices that are calcium fortified, but I'm not sure there's actually any calcium at all in an orange. But you can buy orange juice that has calcium in it. Tropicana makes one. you see it written across there, a selling point. Probably not enough in it to matter, but it's a selling point. I mean, cheese and milk products is where you get calcium. Phosphorus, everybody's favorite green vegetables. Phosphorus, sulfur, green vegetables. Potassium, bananas, cantaloupe, V8, very good for potassium. Chlorine, green vegetables. Sodium, open up a bag of chips. Not necessarily something you really need a lot of. As we said already in a previous chapter, we're very limited in what we can take in or get rid of. We're not limited to take in for sure. And magnesium, those green vegetables again. You know, Papa knew what he was doing eating all that spinach. Is that your favorite green vegetable, spinach?
Fresh spinach.
Fresh spinach? You like green and sweet peas? I like them, they're pretty good. Name some green vegetables you like. Broccoli.
Brussels sprouts.
Cucumbers. Cucumbers are fruit.
What?
So tomatoes are fruit. So
Okra.
okra technically is a fruit.
It's good though, fried.
I'm not sure we're getting what we need out of that though. You're gonna mess your gallbladder up. Whoops, don't have one.
Brussels sprouts.
It really comes down to broccoli, Brussels sprouts, spinach, turnip greens. Green beans would fall into that.
Coke.
He's saying
Poke.
green.
What'd you say?
Poke.
Poke, yeah, that would
What about
fall under.
pickles?
A lot of people don't know what that is, but it's one of my favorites. If you don't know what you're doing, you can kill people with it though. Anybody ever cook poke salad, which is wild?
And eggs.
Oh, it makes it even better.
That sounds really good.
Yeah. And if you don't pour the first batch of juice off of it, you're in trouble though, huh? You won't ever be as sick as you were then if you survive. So the green leafy vegetables are not only, well, they don't hit in the high of the I love category when it comes to food. You just rather eat the meat and forget the
Actually, they
vegetables.
do at our house.
Do I?
They do at our house.
We eat a lot of vegetables at our house, so we eat a lot of fruit, because there's so many things. Here's how you classify fruit. If the seeds are within, it's a fruit. If the seeds are within. You know, think of a peach, where's the seed?
Inside.
Where's the seed of a cucumber?
Inside.
Inside. Where's the seed of a watermelon? Cantaloupe, tomatoes, all inside.
What about pickles?
Strawberries are buried throughout it, so it technically is a fruit. Although in strawberries, unlike some other, it's really strange because if you take a pea pod, has anybody ever shelled peas?
It sucks.
I love peas, of course it's a legume, but I don't like picking them.
Green or purple.
My mom and I's got a deal. I'll pick them and she shells them and cooks them because I can shell them and I can butcher them when I cook them, but she can cook them. So then we split them, see? But the pod of a pea, the pod is the ovary, and the seed, what we eat, is the ovule. Well, when you eat a strawberry, you eat the ovary and the ovules. So the way you look at it, yes, I'm really not into eating ovaries, but that strawberry sure was good. So
What about a pepper?
a pepper is a fruit. It falls in the nightshade family, and there's some side effects to nightshade. They say if the more peppers you eat, the more you'll enhance your arthritic problems.
I didn't know that.
So there's a lot of weeds out there that's in the nightshade family, so we're eating the fruit of a weed. And I love peppers. I love all kinds of peppers. Just,
I can't believe they're considered fruits.
it is. Where are the seeds?
They're on the inside,
They're
yeah.
on the inside.
They're like ticks to pull off, but anyways.
The seeds are?
Mhm.
Just eat them.
No, it's gross.
That's the whole idea of fruit, is that you eat the seed. The seeds are within, so you eat the seeds. So when the animal is a mile down there, when the fruit seed comes out in its own pile of fertilizer and ready to go again.
Yeah, we
That's
don't
the
even
whole
see that
idea.
at persimmons, huh?
Persimmons happen like that all the time. And
I
when
don't think
animals
you
eat
wanna
it,
eat
they
the
eat
seed
seed
of
and
the
all.
peach. That's gonna
Yeah,
hurt
but
your teeth.
most humans don't eat the seed of
They clean the system out. All right, moving on, since we enlightened you in a botany aspect. All right, found out I was teaching botany the next semester, so I'm bringing back old ideas. Not that I'm excited about it by any means. On 725, I may have quoted this to you before. Undernourishment and malnourishment rank as two of the world's oldest problems and remain major health problems today, afflicting an eighth of the human population. Cell proliferation and growth in the human brain are most rapid in the terminal months of gestation and the first year after birth. They're actually saying, I've read several things on this, 6 months up to a year. Now they've expanded that they believe some portions, some parts, some neurons of the brain still develop up to 7 years of age. It's the only thing that gives me hope when my little one is 5. So I'm gonna adhere to that 7 years. It goes on to say that brains of children who die of protein malnutrition, they didn't have proper nourishment in the first year of their life, have 15 to 20% fewer brain cells relative to normal children. Malnourished children who survive this period may suffer permanent brain damage, never to be corrected. It's kind of sad, but as a parent, that's good information. It's extremely important. Well, that finishes up chapter 32. Jumps us to chapter 35. Last chapter before our test. Probably not going to spend a ton of time in this chapter. I don't take a bunch of questions out of this chapter, but I have this chapter summarized. In fact, I'll give you a chance to write this stuff down. If I can find it. This chapter is summarized in 3 categories. First category is passive versus active. Second category is humoral versus cell-mediated. And the third category is specific versus non-specific. These categories in the books does similar. I think it's better to grasp when you see one versus another, and then all in some shape or form work together for your immune process. They start out in the book simply talking about your innate defense system. Well, let's talk about your built-in defense system. Are you born with a defense system? Where'd you get it? Is that a permanent system? Temporary? Mom only planning on loving you for a little while? Did you get it in utero while you were being developed? Is that where you got it? Did you get any after you was born? Mom just handing out right and left, didn't she? And there's truth to all that. You do get some in utero. You do get more. It's almost like a booster shot with colostrum. So it's nature's own immune process. And some people say, well, my mama never gave me any colostrum. I was a bottle baby from day one. And my immune system's been shot from day one. Well, in all theory, it wouldn't be as good as a person who got the booster shot of colostrum and was breastfed for a period of time. But there are several documented cases where there's no significant difference in immune systems. But what you don't want to do is leave the hospital and go by Walmart and show your child off. An immune system that they may have still is in the developmental process. Only immune system they have when they're born is what mom has dealt with in her lifetime. Get a little antibody of all of it. While mom was producing colostrum, that colostrum was built of all the things she's fought off in her life that they could throw in that colostrum. So if a child's a bottle baby, what do they drink? Name some of them.
Similac.
Oh, I'm glad you named that one. We need to go no further. Similac. Yeah. They named it that way, I'm sure, because of this right here. It is similar to mother's milk, but lacking in everything she has to offer. Think about that. That's probably not the reason they named it that way, but that's my reason they named it that way. Similac. Similar, yet lacking. There is only one place you can get good colostrum. From mom. That's it. Mom is a specialist when it comes to that. And lots of documentation saying this is better for the children, better for immunity, and some even go as far as say, oh, they're smarter kids and blah, blah, blah. Well, we can document cases where there's some other smarter kids too that weren't eating colostrum or didn't drink colostrum when they was born. So, but there's a lot of supporting evidence to that. So as far as innate defense, the baby itself, by itself, really has none. What they're born with is given to them through mom by utero booster shot of colostrum. And then the child starts developing their own immune system. Hopefully not the first day they're born or this first day they left the hospital at Walmart. You don't want to do that. I've known kids do that and end up in the hospital at a week old with meningitis. Not a good combination. We typically take them home and somewhat quarantine them for a while. Number one, mom needs to heal up. You bring in a grandparent or a brother or a sister or something to help around the house, but you just don't let a flood of people come in and breathe and kiss all over the kid. So they're building their defense. At what point is this child capable of building a strong defense system? How old are they? A month?
6 months.
6 weeks?
Month.
How long?
6 months.
6 months? Only if we knew would be a wonderful answer, wouldn't it? Does some children not leave the hospital without getting a hepatitis shot now?
No.
They do, don't they? And a lot of times it's a choice of the parents, but if the pediatrician comes in and recommends it, most parents say, oh, okay, sure. I mean, you know your stuff, so. Would that not tell you that they have the capability at that point to build an immune system? Maybe we just don't know what the Sam Hill we're doing. Could it be different for every child? Y'all just real agreeable today. Everything I've said, y'all just,
Only if your wife is like that, right?
My wife, yeah, only if she was like that. I'm the one giving that, Yes, ma'am. The physiology book is so vague about this, it literally says this. Children start building their immune system shortly after birth. That ought to cover 6 months or 6 weeks or 2 months or 2 days. Shortly after birth. Who knows what the capabilities are? I think that when does the first set of shots you tend to take them to? Is that 2 months, 6 months?
3 months.
3 months? See, I can't keep up with it. My wife's had several kids, but I don't think their father ever really got involved. I text my daughter, my oldest daughter this morning, we've always said she wasn't ours. They switched her at the hospital. I texted her and said, I was needing a copy of her birth certificate or something. I said, do you have your birth certificate? I need it to prove I'm really not your father. She texts back and said, yes, I have it. Now, really, why do you need it? I said, it's a secret. So that's where I left her. She'll be up there real fast this evening, because it'll just drive her nuts. But I'm pretty sure they switched her to hospital. Needless to say, innate defense system, who knows when it starts, but we do, the best you can do as beginning is give them colostrum to start with. Now that we have this up here, let's break this down a little bit. Or y'all wanna wait till Thursday?
To do what?
Break this down. Yeah, we really don't have time. I'll start down here with non-specific. Now that y'all have it in your notes, we'll start on Thursday. We'll finish the chapter Thursday. We'll decide for sure when we have a test. We could have a test next Tuesday. Y'all want a test next Tuesday?
No.
You can turn that off if you